The cargo freighter was old, but she was reliable. At least, that is what Park Ho always said to himself when the ship made strange noises in the dark of space. He had been flying her for 3 years now, carrying supplies to distant planets, and she had never failed him, not once. Today was supposed to be a simple run: pick up medical supplies from the station, deliver them to the outpost on 4, get paid, go home. Simple. Ho sat in the pilot's chair, watching the stars through the front window. Behind him, he could hear working on one of the power cables. She was always fixing something. The ship was old, and old things needed care. "How long until we reach the planet?" asked without looking up from her work. "About 2 hours," Ho replied. He checked the instruments one more time. Everything looked normal. "You should rest. You have been working all day." Laughed. It was a tired laugh. "If I rest, who will keep this ship from falling apart?" She was right, of course, the needed constant attention. But that was okay. Ho liked this life. It was quiet. It was peaceful. After everything he had seen in the military, quiet and peaceful were exactly what he needed. Their navigator walked into the cockpit. Was an alien with 4 arms and large compound eyes that reflected the light like black mirrors. He was nervous by nature, always worried about something. Today, he seemed more worried than usual. "I do not like this route," said, his mandibles clicking softly. "There is too much debris from the old station. We should go around." Ho looked at the navigation screen, was talking about the remains of a space station that had been destroyed years ago. The debris field was large, but their path only touched the edge of it. "The edge is safe," Ho said. "We have passed through many times before. Do not worry, my friend." Made a sound that might have been a sigh. Humans always say do not worry, then something bad happens. Ho smiled. He liked that was overcautious, but he was good at his job, and in space, being careful was never a bad thing. For the next hour, everything was normal. Finished her repairs and joined them in the cockpit. Watched the sensors with all 4 of his eyes. Ho guided the ship smoothly through the darkness. Then the alarm started screaming. Ho's hands moved fast on the controls. The screen showed something large and fast coming toward them from the debris field. It was a piece of the old station, a massive chunk of metal that had been hidden behind a larger fragment. By the time their sensors detected it, it was too late to dodge completely. "Hold on," Ho shouted. The impact was terrible. The shook like a toy in the hands of an angry child. Metal screamed as the hull was torn open. Lights flickered and died. Emergency power kicked in, painting everything in red. Ho was thrown from his chair. He hit the floor hard, but he was moving again in seconds. His training took over. Assess the situation, find the damage, protect the crew. He called out. "I am here," his voice came from somewhere in the darkness. The navigation console exploded. I am not injured badly." Ho felt cold fear in his chest. "Answer me." There was no answer. Ho grabbed her emergency light and ran toward the back of the ship. What he saw made his heart stop. The ceiling had collapsed. Heavy metal panels had fallen and was trapped underneath them. She was not moving. "No, no, no." Ho dropped to his knees beside her. He checked her pulse. She was alive, unconscious, but alive. Relief washed through him, but only for a moment. They were still in danger. Another alarm joined the first one. The hull breach was getting worse. They had maybe 10 minutes before the whole ship broke apart. Appeared beside him, his compound eyes wide with fear. The escape pod. We must go to the escape pod. Ho shook his head. There is only one pod and it only holds two. You take the medical supplies and go. Someone on 4 needs those supplies. People will die without them. But what about you? Asked. There is a secondary shuttle in the cargo bay. I will get out and use that. Ho was already trying to lift the metal panels. They were heavy, too heavy, but he did not stop. Go, that is an order. Hesitated. His species was not known for bravery, and he had always been more nervous than most, but he nodded. I will send help as soon as I land, I promise. Then he was gone, running toward the escape pod with the container of medical supplies in his forearms. Ho turned back to the panels. He grabbed the largest one and pulled. The metal cut into his hands. His muscles screamed in protest, but he did not stop. He could not stop, was depending on him. The ship shook again. A support beam fell from above and struck Ho across the back. He heard something crack. Pain exploded through his body, sharp and hot, but he stayed on his feet. He kept pulling. One panel came free, then another. Was still unconscious, but he could see her face now. Blood was running from a cut on her forehead, but she was breathing. I am going to get you out of here, Ho said. His voice was steady, even though his body was shaking. I promise to get you home for your sister's wedding. Remember, I never break my promises. He pulled away the last panel and gathered in his arms. She was light, lighter than he expected. Or maybe the adrenaline was making everything feel different. The walk to the cargo bay was a nightmare. The ship was dying around them. Fires burned in some sections. In others, the cold of space was creeping in through cracks in the hull. Ho's body screamed at him with every step. Something was very wrong inside him. He could feel bones grinding against each other in ways they should not, but he kept walking. The secondary shuttle was small and old, barely more than a metal box with an engine, but it was intact. Ho strapped into one of the seats and took the pilot's chair. His hands were shaking as he started the launch sequence. The shuttle separated from the just seconds before the old freighter finally broke apart. Ho watched through the window as his ship, his home for 3 years, became a cloud of fire and debris. Goodbye, old friend, he whispered. Then he turned his attention to the planet below. 4 was large and green, covered in forests and cities. The capital was visible even from here, a bright spot of lights on the night side of the planet. That was where he needed to go. That was where the hospital was. The shuttle's entry into the atmosphere was rough. The craft was not designed for planetary landing, and without proper navigation, Ho had to do everything manually. Warning lights flashed. The shuttle shook violently. Heat shields strained under the pressure. They hit the ground hard. The shuttle bounced once, twice, then slid to a stop in a field of strange purple grass. Ho's head hit the console. For a moment, everything went black. When he woke up, smoke was filling the cabin. He freed himself from the chair and checked on. She was still unconscious, still breathing. The shuttle's medical scanner told him she had a concussion and some broken ribs, but nothing life-threatening. She would live if he could get her to a hospital. Ho checked himself next. The results made his blood run cold. 17 bone fractures, internal bleeding, a collapsed lung, By every medical standard he knew, he should not be able to stand. But he stood anyway. He lifted onto his back, securing her with straps from the emergency kit. Then he looked toward the distant lights of the city. It was far, very far, maybe 3 kilometers, maybe more. He took a deep breath. His broken ribs screamed in protest. He ignored them. Then Park Ho started walking. The purple grass was soft under Ho's feet, but every step felt like walking on broken glass. His body was falling apart from the inside. He could feel it. Every bone that was cracked, every muscle that was torn, every organ that was slowly failing. The small computer chip in his brain, the neural implant that all humans had these days, kept telling him the damage report. 17 fractures, internal bleeding, collapsed lung, severe trauma. He told the implant to be quiet. He did not need it to tell him he was dying. He already knew. It was warm on his back. Her breathing was slow and steady. That was good. That meant she was alive. As long as she was alive, Ho could keep walking. The city lights seemed so far away. Every time he looked up, they did not seem any closer. Maybe they were getting farther. Maybe he was walking in circles. No, that was stupid. The lights were there. He just had to reach them. One step, then another, then another. Ho thought about his life as he walked. It helped to think. Thinking kept his mind away from the pain. Thinking kept him moving when his body wanted to stop. He was born in a city by the sea in old Korea. His family was poor. His father worked in a factory. His mother cleaned houses for rich people. They never had much money, but they had love. That was enough. When he was 18, Ho joined the military. He wanted to see the stars. He wanted adventure. He wanted to be a hero. How young he had been. How foolish. The military sent him to a small moon on the edge of human space. There was a conflict there, a fight over mining rights with another human faction. It was not a big war, just a small, dirty fight in the dark tunnels of an airless moon. Ho was a medic. His job was to save lives. He lost his entire squad in one night, an ambush in the tunnels, explosions and screaming and blood. Ho tried to save them. He tried so hard, but one by one they died in his arms, all of them, every single one. He never forgave himself for surviving. After the war, he could not go back to normal life. He could not sleep without seeing their faces. He could not close his eyes without hearing their screams, so he became a pilot instead. He flew cargo ships to distant worlds. He kept moving, always moving, because if he stopped, the memories would catch up. Well, then he met. She was an engineer looking for work. She was smart and kind and had a laugh that sounded like music. She reminded Ho of his little sister, the one who had died of illness when they were children. Working with made him feel alive again. She became his family. Ho stumbled. His left leg, the one with the shattered femur, almost gave out. He caught himself at the last moment, using his right arm to balance. Pain shot through his broken collarbone, so sharp that he almost screamed, but he bit his tongue and kept the scream inside. He could not scream, might wake up. He did not want her to see him like this. The ground began to slope upward. A small hill stood between Ho and the city. It was not a big hill. On a normal day, he could walk up it in 5 minutes. Today, it looked like a mountain. One step, then another, then another. He remembered the day told him about her sister's wedding. Bora, the younger sister, was getting married to a teacher she had met at university, had not been home in 2 years. She was so excited to see her family again. "You should come with me," had said. "Meet my family. My mother makes the best food in all of Korea. You will love it." Ho had smiled. "I would like that." "It is a promise then," had said. "You and me at my sister's wedding, no excuses." No excuses. Ho repeated those words in his mind. No excuses. He had made a promise. He had to keep it. Something moved in the grass to his left. Ho turned his head slowly, careful not to disturb on his back. Shapes were watching him from the darkness. Farmers, probably, judging by their simple clothing. They stood in a group of 4 or 5, their compound eyes reflecting the starlight. Ho tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. All that came out was a rough whisper. "Help, please." They did not move. They just watched him with their strange, unreadable eyes. Then, slowly, they backed away and disappeared into the grass. Ho understood he was a stranger here, an alien. To them, he probably looked like a monster, covered in blood and walking with a body on his back. They were afraid. He could not blame them. If he saw something like himself stumbling through a field at night, he would be afraid too. So he kept walking alone. The hill was harder than he expected. Each step up the slope put more weight on his broken bones. His right leg was shaking now, matching his left. His arms were going numb from holding in place. The straps helped, but they were not enough. He had to keep his hands pressed against her legs to stop her from sliding off. Halfway up the hill, he fell. It was his left leg that failed. The shattered femur simply could not take the pressure anymore. One moment he was walking, the next he was on the ground, face pressed into the purple grass. For a long moment, Ho did not move. He could not move. His body was screaming at him to stop, to rest, to give up. Every part of him wanted to close his eyes and sleep. But then he felt weight on his back. He felt her breathing against his neck. She was still alive. She was still depending on him. He pushed himself up with his arms. Pain exploded through his body, but he ignored it. He got to his knees. Then, slowly, terribly, he got to his feet. "Not yet," he whispered to himself. "Not yet. You can die after she is safe, not before." He started walking again. At the top of the hill, the city finally looked closer. Ho could see the buildings now, tall structures made of a material that shone like pearl in the starlight. The hospital would be in there somewhere. He just had to find it. The grass ended at the edge of the city. The ground changed to a smooth, white surface, some kind of road. Walking on it was easier than walking on the grass. Ho was grateful for that small mercy. The streets were empty. It was late at night, and they did not seem to like the dark. All the windows were closed. All the doors were shut. The city looked like a ghost town. But Ho could see signs. They were in script, which he could not read, but some of them had pictures. He looked for the symbol that meant hospital, a circle with a cross inside. It was the same symbol on most planets, a universal sign of help. He found it on the 3rd Street. The sign pointed left. Ho turned left. 3 more blocks, 2 more blocks, 1 more block. His vision was starting to blur. The blood loss was catching up to him. His collapsed lung was making it hard to breathe. Each breath was a battle, a small war fought inside his chest. But the hospital was right there. He could see it. A large building with lights in every window, movement behind the glass, doctors and nurses going about their work. Ho walked up to the entrance. The doors slid open automatically, revealing a lobby filled with white light. The light was so bright that it hurt his eyes, but he did not look away. He stepped inside. The lobby was full of aliens, with their 4 arms and compound eyes. Other species, too, ones Ho did not recognize. They were all looking at him. Every single one of them had stopped what they were doing to stare at the creature that had just walked through their door. Ho knew what he looked like, covered in blood, body twisted at wrong angles, more dead than alive, carrying another body on his back. He took one more step forward, then another. Then he stopped in the middle of the lobby. A tall in white clothing approached him. A doctor, probably. Her compound eyes were wide with something that might have been shock or fear or both. Ho opened his mouth. His voice came out as a broken whisper, barely loud enough to hear. "She needs help," he said, gesturing to on his back. "Please save her." The doctor said something in that Ho did not understand. Other staff members rushed forward. Hands reached for, carefully lifting her from his back. More hands reached for him, trying to support his broken body. Ho pushed them away. "Her first," he said. "Help her first. I can wait." The staff exchanged looks. They seemed confused. In their world, a patient with 17 broken bones should not be standing, should not be talking, should not be able to refuse help. But Ho was human, and humans were not like other species. He stood in the middle of that alien hospital, watching as they carried away. Only when she disappeared through a door marked with medical symbols did he finally let himself relax. Only then did his legs give out. He fell to the floor of the alien hospital, surrounded by creatures who could not believe what they had just seen. A human with 17 broken bones had walked into their hospital, carrying another person on his back. And he had refused help until she was safe. In that moment, every alien in that room learned something new about the strange species called humanity. They learned that humans do not give up on the ones they love. Not ever. Dr. Myra had been a physician for 200 years. In that time, she had seen many things. She had treated patients from dozens of species. She had saved lives that others said could not be saved. She had written papers that changed how the Galactic Union thought about medicine. But she had never seen anything like this. The human lay on the medical table, unconscious at last. His body was a ruin. The scanners showed the damage in terrible detail. 17 bone fractures, 4 broken ribs, a shattered femur, a broken tibia, a cracked collarbone, 3 fractured vertebrae in his spine, multiple broken fingers, internal bleeding in 3 places, 1 lung collapsed and filled with fluid, severe damage to muscles and soft tissue throughout his body. Dr. Myra stood over him, her 4 arms hanging at her sides, her compound eyes fixed on the scanner results. Behind her, the medical staff whispered to each other in shocked voices. "This is impossible," said Nurse. She was a tall species with pale skin that glowed with soft light. Her glow was dim now, a sign that she was disturbed. No one could survive this. No one could walk with these injuries. "And yet he did," Dr. Myra replied. Her voice was calm, but inside she felt anything but calm. He did not just survive. He walked 3 kilometers carrying another patient on his back. "How?" asked. Dr. Myra did not have an answer. In the next room, the female human was recovering well. Her injuries were minor compared to her companion. A concussion, some broken ribs, cuts and bruises. She would be fine in a few days. The staff had already stabilized her. But the male human was a different matter. His body was so damaged that Dr. Myra was not sure where to begin. By all logic, he should be dead. His species should not be able to function with this level of trauma. Dr. Paul arrived an hour later. He was a small species with skin and 6 fingers on each hand. His specialty was xenobiology, the study of different species. He had written several papers on human physiology, though he had never treated a human patient before. "I came as soon as I heard," Dr. Paul said, approaching the medical table. His 6-fingered hands trembled slightly as he read the scanner results. By the ancestors, how is he still alive? "That is what we are trying to understand," Dr. Myra said. Dr. Paul began his examination. He ran additional scans. He took blood samples. He studied the human's neural implant, downloading its data log. The log showed everything that had happened since the crash: the initial injuries, the fall of the support beam, the walk through the fields, the climb up the hill, the journey through the city streets. His body was failing throughout the entire journey, Dr. Paul said, reading the data. His heart stopped twice. Both times it started again on its own. His lung was collapsed, but he kept breathing through the other one. His blood pressure dropped to dangerous levels, but his body somehow kept his brain supplied with oxygen. "How is that possible?" nurse asked. "Adrenaline," Dr. Paul replied. "Humans produce a chemical called adrenaline in response to danger. It increases heart rate, strengthens muscles, and allows them to ignore pain temporarily. But this," he gestured at the scanner results, "this goes beyond simple adrenaline response. This human should have collapsed within the first 100 meters. Instead, he walked for over 3 kilometers. Dr. Myra thought about what she had seen in the lobby, the way the human had pushed away the staff who tried to help him, the way he had insisted that they treat the female first. Even in his broken state, his only concern had been for her. "Perhaps the answer is not just physical," she said slowly. Dr. Paul looked at her. "What do you mean?" "I have read studies about humans," Dr. Myra continued. "They are a strange species. They form strong emotional bonds with each other. When someone they care about is in danger, they become different, more than they normally are." "You are talking about psychological factors," Dr. Paul said. "I am talking about something we do not fully understand," Dr. Myra replied. "The body has limits that cannot be overcome by willpower. When we are damaged beyond a certain point, our systems shut down. It is automatic. We cannot choose to continue." She pointed at the human on the table, but humans seem to be different. Their bodies can be forced to continue by their minds. When they decide that something is more important than their own survival, they can push beyond what should be possible. The room was silent for a moment. Then Dr. Paul spoke again. "I should study this more," he said. "If what you are saying is true, it could change how we think about trauma care for all species." The surgery took 6 hours. Dr. Myra led a team of 12 specialists, each one working on a different part of the human's broken body. They used the best technology the Galactic Union had to offer: regenerative gel to heal the internal bleeding, bone-knitting nanomachines to repair the fractures, tissue rebuilding compounds to fix the damaged muscles, a lung restoration procedure that would have killed most species but worked on the resilient human body. By the end, the human was stable. His body was still badly damaged, but he would live. He would recover. As Dr. Myra washed the blood from her forearms, a new visitor arrived at the hospital. Commander was a human woman, a liaison officer stationed on 4 to help with relations between humans and the local government. She was tall and stern, with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "I heard about the crash," Commander said. "I came as soon as I could. Where are my people?" Dr. Myra led her to the observation window outside the surgery room. Through the glass, they could see the human still lying on the table, wrapped in regenerative equipment. "He will live," Dr. Myra said, "but it will take time for him to fully recover." The commander stared through the window. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands were clenched into fists at her sides. "I was told he walked here with 17 broken bones, carrying another patient on his back." "Well, that is correct." "How far?" "Our estimates suggest approximately 3 kilometers." The commander was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke again, so softly that Dr. Myra almost did not hear her. "This is why the galaxy should never underestimate us." Dr. Myra did not understand what she meant, but she did not ask. Humans were strange, and their words often held meanings that aliens could not grasp. Over the next few days, word spread through the hospital. The story of the human who walked in with 17 broken bones passed from doctor to nurse to patient. It spread to the city outside. Within a week, it had reached the planetary news networks. People came to the hospital just to see the impossible patient, and a dozen other species stood in the lobby, asking about the human who should not have survived. Dr. Paul gave a lecture to the hospital staff, explaining what he had learned about human physiology. He showed them data about adrenaline and endorphins, the chemicals that humans produced in response to danger and pain. He explained how humans had evolved on a planet far more dangerous than most inhabited worlds, a place with high gravity, extreme predators, and toxic chemicals in the atmosphere. "Their bodies are designed for survival," Dr. Paul explained to the gathered staff. "But more than that, their minds are designed for survival. When a human decides that they will not die, when they decide that something matters more than their own pain, they become capable of things that other species cannot achieve." He paused, looking at the faces of his colleagues. "The human in our care did not survive because his body was strong enough. He survived because his mind refused to let him die. He had someone to protect, someone to save, and that was enough." In her room, the female human named had woken up. She had been told what happened. She had cried for an hour, her tears flowing freely as she thought about what her friend had done for her. When the staff asked her about the male human, about Park Ho, she told them about his past, about his time in the military, about the squad he had lost, about the guilt he carried with him every day. "He always says he could not save them," said, her voice thick with emotion. "His old squad, he thinks he failed them, so now he tries to save everyone else, to make up for it." Dr. Myra listened to this story. She began to understand. The human on her table was not just fighting against his physical injuries. He was fighting against something deeper. He was fighting to prove that he was worthy of survival, that he could save the ones he cared about. It was a heavy burden to carry, but it was also, perhaps, the source of his strength. On the fifth day, Park Ho finally woke up. His eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the light of the recovery room. For a moment, he did not know where he was. Then the memories came back, the crash, the walk, the hospital. He tried to sit up, but his body refused. He was wrapped in regenerative gel and connected to machines he did not recognize. A nurse noticed his movement and hurried to his side. "Please do not move," the nurse said. "You are still healing." Aho said. His voice was weak, barely a whisper. "The woman who was with me, is she okay?" The nurse's compound eyes showed something that might have been surprise. After everything this human had been through, his first thought was still about someone else. "She is fine," the nurse said. "She is in the next room. She has been asking about you." Ho closed his eyes. A small smile appeared on his face. "Good," he said. "That is good." Then, despite the protests of the medical staff, he asked them to take him to see her. He could not walk yet, so they brought his bed. They wheeled him through the hallways of the alien hospital, past all the strange creatures who stared at him with wonder and disbelief. When he saw, sitting up in her bed and looking at him with tears in her eyes, Ho reached out his hand. She took it and held it tightly. "You idiot," she said, but she was smiling through her tears. "You absolute idiot, you could have died." "But I did not," Ho replied, "and neither did you, so we are okay." Outside the room, Dr. Myra watched through the window. She had treated thousands of patients in her long career. She had seen courage and strength in many forms. But she had never seen anything like the bond between these two humans. And she began to understand why the galaxy spoke of humanity with such a mixture of fear and respect. They were not the strongest species, they were not the fastest or but when they cared about someone, they became something more than the sum of their parts. They became unstoppable. 3 days passed. Park Ho floated in the regenerative gel, feeling his body slowly piece itself back together. The medical technology was amazing. On Earth, his injuries would have taken months to heal. Here, he could already feel his bones getting stronger, his torn muscles reconnecting, his lung filling with air again. But healing was boring. Ho had never been good at staying still. Even as a child, he had always wanted to be moving, doing, helping. Lying in a tank of green gel while machines fixed his body was not his idea of a good time. Visited him every day, she would sit beside his tank and talk to him through the speaker system. She told him about the news from home. She told him about the strange food they had tried to give her. She told him jokes that were not very funny, but he laughed anyway because it made her smile. "Your sister called," said on the third day, then she paused and corrected herself. "I mean my sister, Bora. She saw the news reports about what happened. She was crying." "Tell her I am sorry for worrying her," Ho said. "She is not worried about me, idiot. She is worried about you," shook her head. "She called you a hero. Everyone is calling you that. The news networks, the hospital staff, even some government officials. They say you are the first human to receive this much attention on 4. Ho frowned inside his gel tank. "I am not a hero. I just did what anyone would do." That is where you are wrong, said a new voice. Ho turned his head to see us standing in the doorway. This one was old, very old. His shell was pale and cracked with age, and he moved slowly with the help of a walking stick, but his compound eyes were sharp and bright. I am Elder, the said, approaching the gel tank. I am a member of the council. I have come to meet the human who walked into our hospital with 17 broken bones. Ho did not know what to say. He had never met a government official before. I am honored, he managed. The elder waved one of his forearms in a gesture that might have been dismissal. Do not be honored, be honest. That is what I want from you, honesty. He lowered himself into a chair beside the tank, his old joints clicking softly. For a long moment he just looked at Ho, studying him with those sharp eyes. I have a question for you, Elder said finally. Why did you not save yourself? Ho blinked. What do you mean? When your ship was breaking apart, you could have taken the escape pod. You could have saved your own life. Instead, you stayed behind to save your friend. You nearly died. Why? The question hung in the air, was watching Ho carefully, waiting for his answer. Even the medical machines seemed to grow quieter, as if they too were listening. Ho thought about the question, he thought about the crash, he thought about trapped under the metal panels, he thought about the choice he had made in that moment. I made her a promise, he said finally. I promised to take her home for her sister's wedding. I do not break my promises. But you could have died, Elder pressed. Promises cannot be kept by dead people. Then I would have died trying. Ho's voice was steady. Where I come from, that matters. Trying matters. Even if you fail, even if you die, the fact that you tried means something. The elder was silent for a long time. His compound eyes reflected the green light of the gel tank. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than before. The Galactic Union has debated humanity's place among the stars for many years, he said. Some say you are dangerous primitives who will bring violence and chaos wherever you go. Others say you are valuable allies who can offer much to our civilization. I came here today because I wanted to see for myself what kind of creatures you truly are. He stood up slowly, leaning on his walking stick. Now I know, he said, I know what kind of creatures you are, and I think the galaxy is very lucky that you chose to be our friends and not our enemies. With that, he walked out of the room, leaving Ho confused and crying softly beside his tank. Later that day, Ho learned that Dr. Paul was giving a lecture about human physiology to the hospital staff. The lecture was supposed to be private, but someone had connected the intercom in Ho's room to the lecture hall. He suspected had something to do with it. Dr. Paul's voice filled the room, explaining things that Ho had never really thought about before. Humans evolved on a planet that we would classify as a Class 4 death world, Dr. Paul said. For comparison, 4 is a Class 1 planet, meaning it has minimal environmental hazards. Most inhabited worlds are Class 1 or 2. Class 4 worlds are places where most species cannot survive without protective equipment. Ho heard murmurs of surprise from the lecture audience. Earth has high gravity compared to most planets, Dr. Paul continued. It has extreme temperature variations, violent weather events, and an atmosphere that contains chemicals poisonous to many species. It is home to countless predators, venomous creatures, and disease-causing organisms. and yet humans evolved there without any special adaptations. They have no shells, no venom, no natural armor. They are, physically speaking, quite fragile. Then how did they survive? Someone asked. By being stubborn, Dr. Paul replied, by refusing to die. Humans have evolved a remarkable ability to push through pain and injury that would stop most other species. Their bodies produce chemicals that allow them to temporarily ignore damage, but more importantly, their minds have evolved to support this ability. When a human has a strong enough reason to survive, their psychology can override their biology. Dr. Paul paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was full of wonder. Consider what happened to the patient in our care. His body was failing. His injuries were catastrophic. By every measure we have, he should have been incapable of movement, but he had someone to protect, someone who was depending on him. And that psychological drive, that need to save another person, allowed him to do something that our science says should be impossible. Is this common among humans? Another voice asked. From what I can determine, yes, human history is full of stories like this. People who survived impossible situations because they had something to live for. Parents who lifted heavy objects to save their children. Soldiers who kept fighting with mortal wounds. Ordinary people who became extraordinary in moments of crisis. Dr. Paul let this sink in before continuing. Other species survive because their bodies allow them to. Humans survive because they decide to. That is the fundamental difference. That is what makes them unlike anything else in the galaxy. The lecture continued, but Ho stopped listening. He was thinking about what Dr. Paul had said. He had never thought of himself as special. He had never thought of humans as special. They were just people doing what people did, helping each other, protecting each other, refusing to give up on each other. But maybe that was special. Maybe, in a galaxy full of species who shut down when they were damaged, a species that kept fighting was something remarkable. That evening set up a holographic call. The image flickered for a moment, and then Bora appeared, projected into the hospital room. She was younger than, with rounder cheeks and brighter eyes. She was crying before she even said hello. Bora said, using the Korean word for older sister, "I was so scared. When I saw the news, I thought you were dead." "I am fine," said gently. "Ho saved me. He carried me all the way to the hospital." Bora turned to look at the gel tank where Ho was floating. Her tears were flowing freely now. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for saving my sister. I do not know how to repay you." "You do not need to repay me," Ho said. "Just have a beautiful wedding. That will be enough." "You have to come," Bora said. "Both of you. Promise me you will come." Ho looked at him. They both smiled. "We promise," they said together. The call ended and the room was quiet again. Outside the window, the alien stars were shining in the purple sky. It was strange, Ho thought, how different the stars looked from here, but also how familiar. Stars were stars, no matter where you were in the galaxy. Ho said softly, "Oh yes. Thank you for everything, for not giving up, for keeping your promise." Ho reached out his hand, stretching it out of the gel tank, took it, her warm fingers wrapping around his. "That is what friends are for," he said. They stayed like that for a long time, holding hands in the quiet of the alien hospital, surrounded by creatures who would never fully understand them. But that was okay. Humans did not need to be understood. They just needed to be there for each other. And that was something they were very good at. The 6 weeks passed like a dream. Park Ho stood on the observation deck of the Galactic Union Embassy on Earth, looking out at the city below. It was Seoul, the capital of Korea, though it looked very different from the Seoul his grandparents had known. The buildings reached so high they seemed to touch the clouds. Flying vehicles moved between them like schools of fish. Holographic advertisements painted the sky in every color imaginable. But some things had not changed. The people still moved with purpose through the streets. The food sellers still called out their wares from small stalls. The old temples still stood between the towers of glass and steel, reminders of a time before humanity reached for the stars. Ho flexed his left hand, opening and closing his fingers. There was no pain anymore. The medicine had done its work perfectly. His bones were healed. His muscles were rebuilt. His lung was functioning better than ever before. But he still remembered the pain. He still remembered the walk. Some things you do not forget, no matter how healthy your body becomes. The door behind him opened and walked in. She was wearing a formal dress, dark blue with silver patterns along the edges. Her hair was styled beautifully, pinned up with small jeweled clips. She looked like a princess from an old story. "There you are," she said, joining him at the window. "The ceremony is starting soon. They are looking for you." Ho sighed. "I do not like ceremonies. Too many people looking at me." "You are receiving the Cross of Valor," reminded him. "The first human ever to receive it. You cannot skip your own ceremony." "Well, I can try." Punched his arm lightly. It did not hurt at all, which meant his healing was complete. "Stop being difficult. You deserve this. You saved my life." "I was just doing my job." "Your job is flying cargo ships. Carrying injured people through alien wilderness while dying is definitely not in your job description." Ho could not argue with that, so he let take his arm and led him to the ceremony hall. The hall was packed with creatures from across the galaxy, and a dozen other species Ho could not name. They were all dressed in their finest clothes, their strangest formal wear, their most elaborate decorations. In the middle of all this alien color, the human guests looked almost plain in comparison. A stage had been set up at the front of the hall. Commander was already standing there, waiting. Elder sat in a place of honor, his old body supported by a special chair. Dr. Myra and Dr. Paul were in the audience, along with nurse and many other staff from the 4 hospital. And in the front row, right where Ho could see her, sat Sister Bora. She was holding hands with her new husband, a quiet man with kind eyes. The wedding had happened 2 weeks ago, and Ho had kept his promise to attend. It had been a beautiful ceremony, full of laughter and tears and terrible dancing. Ho smiled at the memory. The ceremony began with a speech from the ambassador. He talked about the relationship between 4 and Earth. He talked about the importance of cooperation between species. He talked about the values that united all beings in the galaxy. Then he talked about Ho. "6 weeks ago, a human pilot crashed on our planet," the ambassador said. "He was badly injured, 17 bones broken, internal bleeding, a collapsed lung. By our medical standards, he should not have been able to move, but he did not just move. He walked 3 kilometers through our countryside, carrying another injured human on his back. He walked into our hospital and demanded that we treat his companion before himself. Then and only then did he allow himself to fall. The audience was silent. Every eye in the room was fixed on Ho. This act of courage and selflessness has shown us something important about humanity, the ambassador continued. They are not the strongest species in the galaxy. They are not the fastest or the most advanced, but they have something that is perhaps more valuable than any of these things. They have heart, they have will, they have a refusal to give up on the ones they love, even when logic says they should. He gestured toward Ho. For this reason, the Council has decided to award Park Ho the Cross of Valor, the highest honor our people can give. May this serve as a symbol of the bond between our species and a reminder of what we can accomplish when we stand together. Ho was called to the stage. His legs felt weak, but not from injury this time. He was not used to attention. He did not like attention, but he walked forward anyway because sometimes you have to do things you do not like. Eldar rose from his chair, moving slowly on his ancient legs. In his 4 hands he held a medal. It was shaped like a star, made of a metal that shone with inner light. It was beautiful. Park Ho, Elder said, his voice carrying across the silent hall. You have shown the galaxy what it means to be human. You have shown us that there is strength beyond physical power, courage beyond mere survival. Accept this medal not just for yourself, but for all your species. Let it remind everyone who sees it that humans are worthy of our respect and our friendship. He placed the medal around Ho's neck. It was heavier than Ho expected, but it was a good weight, an honest weight. The crowd applauded. Humans clapped their hands, clicked their mandibles. Other species made their own sounds of approval. The hall was filled with noise, all of it celebrating one man who had simply refused to let his friend die. Ho looked at the crowd. He saw Dr. Myra, who had saved his life with her skill and her technology. He saw Commander, who had stood watch over him while he recovered. He saw the nervous navigator who had delivered the medical supplies and sent help as promised. And he saw, standing in the front row with tears running down her face. When the applause finally died down, Ho was asked to say a few words. He had not prepared anything. He was not good at speeches, but he tried anyway. I am not a hero, he said. His voice was steady, but his heart was pounding. I was just a man who made a promise. I promised my friend that I would get her home safe, and I do not break my promises. He paused, looking at the sea of faces before him. Where I come from, we have a saying. It goes something like this. The measure of a person is not what they do when things are easy. It is what they do when things are hard. When everything is falling apart and every part of you wants to give up, that is when you find out who you really are. Ho touched the medal on his chest. I am not special. I am just a man who did not give up. And I believe every person in this room, whether they are human or any other species, has that same strength inside them. We all have the ability to push through the hard times, to keep walking when our bodies want to stop. We just have to find something worth walking for. He looked directly at. I found mine. The ceremony ended with more applause and many handshakes and too much food. Ho escaped as soon as he could, slipping out onto a balcony to breathe the night air. Dr. Paul found him there, the small scientist approaching quietly. That was a good speech, Dr. Paul said. I did not mean to give a speech, it just happened. Dr. Paul made a sound that might have been a laugh. That is often how the best speeches happen. They stood in silence for a moment, looking at the stars. I have been asked to lead a new research program, Dr. Paul said. The medical council wants to study human resilience in detail. They want to understand how your species does what it does. Perhaps we can find ways to help other species develop similar abilities. That sounds like important work, Ho said. It is, and it started with you. Dr. Paul looked up at him with those big, dark eyes. Before you walked into that hospital, most of the galaxy saw humans as just another species. Nothing special, nothing remarkable. Now they see you differently. Now they understand that there is something inside humans that makes them more than they appear. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. A young medical student asked me once what makes humans so different. I have thought about that question for weeks, and I finally have an answer. What is it? Other species survive because their bodies allow them to. Humans survive because they decide to. That is the difference. That is what makes you terrifying and wonderful at the same time. Ho thought about this. He thought about all the times in his life when he had kept going when he should have stopped. The military, the guilt, the long years of running from his past, and finally, the walk through the alien wilderness with 17 broken bones. Maybe you are right, he said. Maybe we are just too stubborn to die. Dr. Paul smiled. There are worse things to be. A month later, Ho was back in space. The new ship was called II, named in honor of the old freighter that had given its life to save them. It was bigger than the original, better equipped, faster, and more beautiful, but it felt the same. It felt like home. Captain Jin welcomed him aboard with a firm handshake. She was a sharp woman with no time for nonsense, exactly the kind of captain Ho respected. I have heard a lot about you, she said. The man who would not fall, try not to break any bones on my ship. I will do my best, Ho replied. Was already at the engineering console, arguing with a technician about the proper way to calibrate the power couplings. Some things never changed. And there was, standing nervously near the navigation station. When he saw Ho, his compound eyes brightened. I was not sure you would want me back, said, after I left you on the ship. You did exactly what I told you to do, Ho interrupted. You saved those medical supplies. 43 people are alive because of you. Do not ever apologize for that. His mandibles clicked softly. It was the equivalent of a smile. Thank you. I am glad to be on your crew again. The II launched that afternoon, rising through Earth's atmosphere and into the blackness of space. The stars spread out before them, endless points of light in the darkness. Somewhere out there were new worlds, new adventures, new promises to keep. Ho sat in the pilot's chair, his hands resting lightly on the controls, was at his right side, was at his left. Behind them, a mixed crew of humans and aliens went about their work, all of them united by a shared purpose. Through the window, the galaxy waited. Ho flexed his hand, the one that had been shattered just 2 months ago. There was no pain, there was no weakness, but there was a memory of what he had done, carved into his bones forever. He had walked when he should have fallen. He had lived when he should have died. And he had kept his promise. That was what it meant to be human. Not just to survive, but to decide to survive. Not just to keep going, but to refuse to stop. Not just to live, but to live for something worth living for. The stars stretched out before them, bright and beautiful and full of possibility. And Park Ho smiled. Because the universe was vast and dangerous and wonderful, and he was exactly where he was meant to be. Among the stars, with his family, ready for whatever came next.